Hello and welcome everyone to episode 152 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derrick Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm the, English letterer of manga like Dragon Ball Super, Kaiju number 8, many more, and I feel like it's always a treat when we get a good One Piece movie, because that is not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, we in this modern era. We started it with Strong World, and we saw Oda in the SBSs talk about I wasn't going to do it again because it got me so busy. But then they kept asking these things, and I kept tweaking this, and I kept tweaking this, and I kept tweaking this. And finally, it's yeah, fine, we'll do it. And it ends up with us getting One Piece Film Z. I said Z, but it's named after Zed here. That's what he goes by, is Zed.
I'll probably still call him Z.
Yeah, I'm a filthy American, so
I'm really curious what the dub calls him.
I don't know. I watched it subbed, as I always watch One Piece subbed. I can't help it.
Yeah.
It's what I grew up with, so it's
for sure. I think I would be fine either way. As I would not blame them for hey, I mean, technically, they kind of in Japan, I feel like they don't care. They have Z, they have Z. They've said both.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess it's less grammatically connected, like it is kind of here in the States versus Canada or the UK or anything like that. But whatever.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But yeah, we got One Piece Film Z, similar in some ways to Strong World, but also very, very different. And our first time skip movie.
Yeah, I think that's the big deal with this one.
Yeah, especially because it reveals a lot of things that the manga hasn't even revealed yet. That was the thing that got me off guard most.
Yeah, I feel like this is really where we're starting to get into it too. Where I don't remember if the movie after this has anything like that, but we're definitely kind of the movies might not necessarily be canon, but they have canon information in them. Mm-hmm. And I guess we had that with Strong World too, right? Where Shiki is, he is name dropped in the manga. He is a canon character in the manga, even if the events themselves are not canon. And I think this is really fascinating in just how many new time skip designs we get for a bunch of previously established characters. I was very surprised by who they revealed and who they didn't.
Yeah, it caught me off guard too. To set the stage a little bit, this did release on December 15th, 2012. It takes place, that's right smack dab between chapters 691 and 692 of the manga. So, as of last week's set, basically after the big reveal of Sad and getting into the whole fight with, I believe, Zoro and Tashigi versus Monet. So got right around there. Anime-wise, it takes place between episodes 576 and 77, which is a specific Film Z prologue, which we're actually going to be talking about in our bonus episode for this week. However, if you want to know what that actually means, it means it takes place literally between Fishman Island and Punk Hazard, which is where this takes place. It actually kind of lined up pretty well for the anime in that case.
Yeah, for fun reasons, I think this, God, I maybe said this about Strong World, I can't remember. This is probably the last one that neatly slots in.
And even then, it doesn't that neatly slot in because of the way the manga is structured. The anime gets away with it a little bit better, but if you go strictly manga, oh boy, it's because it's just directly, you're out of Fishman Island into the waters, and hey, let's head to that island.
Yeah.
The closest one in the new world. It's that's just where we're gonna go.
They jank it through. You really can't for the next few. So they don't even try really, which is fair enough.
Yeah. As we said, canon with canon information. And
yeah,
I mean, this might be my favorite One Piece movie since Baron of Matsuri.
I had a feeling. While I was watching this, I was like, man, Derrick's gonna love this movie. Knowing what he looks out for in a good One Piece story, I think he's gonna like it.
Yeah, and it really, honestly, it's that strong just off the back of Zed himself. Zed is the star of this movie. It deserves to be called after him.
Yep.
Probably one of the best villains in the series.
Yeah, and I really think that's also interesting. God, I apologize that I feel like I'm talking so much about the future movies, but it really feels like like Strong World was obviously kind of like the almost like reboot of One Piece films, like the movies kind of as a concept, right? There's the first one that was executive produced by Oda, clearly given the most time, the most budget, and it really feels like there were kinds of seeds of what they were doing in Strong World, where like Shiki was definitely one of the better villains of like that the first crop of movies. Like obviously I love Baron Matsuri with all my heart, and the rest of them are just kind of forgettable, pretty whatever. But I really feel like into this modern era of One Piece movies, I really feel like they kind of like, we have to kind of introduce a new character and kind of really dedicate ourselves to characterizing them, because the audience is already intimately familiar with the Straw Hats. It's a good chance to kind of just like explore other aspects of the setting through other characters, and I feel like Z himself is a really good poster boy for that, because it really is it is his story that the Straw Hats are just kind of in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, because a lot of times with movies is just like, we need a new character to focus on, because again, as you said, we know the ins and outs of these characters. When they try to add other details, we get Zorro's movie 5, I think it was, and it's like or Chopper's movie where it's like, it's kind of around them, but not right. Or the other choice is, here's this brand new character that's a hero, and we're going to try to get you to care about them ASAP. But I think when it's the villain you focus on, that adds a lot more nuance, a possibility of nuance, especially when you do tie it in so closely with the Marines.
Yeah, which I forgot just how much this is like kind of an exploration of like the Marines just kind of like as an institution, and just sort of like here's like this interesting little wrinkle. And I kind of have criticisms on that end as well, but I can't help but just really like what they did with it too.
It's such a dynamic opening too, because we begin with Zed versus Kizaru.
Yeah, and that was when I was like, oh, like we're introduced to this new character, and he is manhandling an admiral.
Yeah,
and he's talking smack, and he's just like, I told you not to rely on your devil fruit too much. And I'm like, oh, like this guy's he's a way bigger deal. Right off the bat.
I mean, before with Shiki, he's like, oh, he stood up to, like, he was a rival of Gold Roger, which kinda. Maybe in Roger's early days, but with this is Zed taking on Kizaru directly, the guy who dismantled the Straw Hats before the time skip. And we haven't seen them go back to it, so we still have no idea how much they compare to Kizaru at this point. I'm inclined to think not yet, that they cannot handle that at the moment. And yet Zed manages to pull it off, where he doesn't exactly beat him, but he's able to get his victory, where he's sets off this thing called a Dynastone that explodes the island, and he's able to somehow survive thanks to the Straw Hats.
Yes.
And that's how we tie in.
There becomes a really, I guess this is one aspect that I wish they did flesh out more, and it sort of feels like kind of a foregone conclusion, where like obviously the Straw Hats they pick up Z, they save his life basically, and it is because of that sort of kind of kicks off the first act, where Z's whole deal is that he's hunting pirates, and so once he learns that the Straw Hats are pirates, he basically he defeats them pretty handily, right?
Oh yeah, and it's devastating. It's giving me flashing of Mary, because friggin' Sunny gets messed up.
It gets blown up. Yeah, no, it is actually it is a really good hook. It is incredible. One, and I promise I'm not going to forget. I have a point to this, but I do think for our listeners, it is worth just kind of like recapping that whole scene in general, where I loved having all of the Straw Hats fighting together against Z, and you sort of your first introduction to Ainz and Bin, who are basically like his subordinates or whatever, and you sort of get a hint to what their devil fruit powers are, and that whole thing. Obviously in a quintessential One Piece story, you have to lose to the villain a couple times, so they get beat pretty handily. But there is this whole aspect of like, I feel like if there is sort of like a theme to this story, it is sort of like exploring what it takes to live out through your ideals. and you have like Z had this whole moment where it felt like, oh, the Sunny and like Luffy put his crew in danger just because of who he is. I feel like there's this sort of level of like, hey, do you regret doing that at all? Like, how much do you trust in your crew to be able to handle the things that you put them through? By this point, we're here at the time skip, basically 600 odd chapters into the manga. There's no question of that, really. So it is one of those things that is just kind of like addressed, but not really. If that makes sense. Like, it's kind of one of those like from the Straw Hats.
He doesn't need to answer. That's
exactly
what he's all about. This is also I was thinking about this. I think this is the first time in a movie we've had a truly thematic set of devil fruits, because Zed is not a devil fruit user. He only has his mechanical arm and strong use of hockey, and the mechanical arm is made out of sea prism stone, which immediately makes him an issue for Luffy. Yes. Even rescuing him, Luffy loses all of his strength when he just sees him passed out in the water. So that just adds a different angle. But then you have these two subordinates that are all about growing and regressing.
Yep.
And that's it's not really focused on, but it's just an interesting little bit of thematic through line there about what Zed's all about.
And I really, that is, I guess my other kind of major gripe feels like too strong of a word, but you really are dealing in this situation where the core villain is an ex-Marine, and he's basically an extremist is what he is. He has an extremist militia who is trying to destroy the world. And I feel like there's a lot about like the Marines as an institution and as a structure, and kind of like what happens when you have kind of one of your own take it too far, that like I think because there's not really like a Marine perspective to this movie. There almost is, and we'll get to that in a bit, I'm sure.
We have one angle, thankfully.
We have one. Yeah, but it really, that to me is the most like underbaked angle of this movie, is the kind of like, and it's the one that makes me go like, man, I kind of wish that the Straw Hats kind of played less of a role, if that makes sense. Or like, it feels like the storytelling kind of knows that this has nothing to do with them, so they have to make it personal.
Yeah.
And so, there's this whole thing of, like, hey man, one of your guys he's an ex-admiral. He is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And here's this guy who is going on this like genocidal tirade, and there's kind of not really much about like, I guess it's like, what took me out of the movie is the sort of like, hey man, you're taking it too far, right? Like the Marines have, there is no self-reflection at any point in this movie of like all of the sort of atrocities that we have seen, as we'll get to in the bonus episode, like the whole thread of Impel Down of like, hey, we're gonna send you here, where all of these atrocities are happening, but but Z, like, no, he's too far. Like that's the thing that I don't buy. I don't buy. I mean, for one
to be fair, he is trying to destroy the world.
He is absolutely he is.
To break down the plot a bit more, is the goal of ZZ whatever is to use these explosives, the Dynastones, to destroy 3 key islands that all have a volcano on it. By disrupting those 3 islands, which are known as endpoints, I believe.
Yeah, endpoints.
It'll disrupt the flow of basically the lava within the earth, and it'll just send it all coming up all throughout the new world and effectively destroy it all, so we can just start from scratch with a new justice in mind, while also simultaneously killing every pirate and civilian in the new world.
Yeah, which is kind of what I mean in terms of like unexplored extremism, right? Like, and I think that is all. God, I'm sorry, I'm being so negative here, because I really, really do like this movie, and this is really, really, these aspects are kind of the only problems I have with it. But I was not really sold. I feels like the stakes were too high, almost, if that makes sense.
A little bit for the Straw Hats, but it's also interesting because that's what the Marines are concerned about, is the destruction of the world. But Luffy is more personal, where it's just, this is a new thing I need to get over in order to become king of the pirates, because he's questioning whether I can become king of the pirates.
Oh, no doubt for Luffy.
Yeah. And I like that he's just like, oh, you're here to save the world. It's like, no, I want my hat back. At that point.
Yeah. And the way that there is this kind of reinforcing that sort of the aspect of like, what is a hero versus what is a pirate that we kind of got during Fishman Island, where, you know, they're very much not heroes and they don't really care about that sort of thing. And I think all that stuff is completely fine.
Yeah.
I think it is the more world-ending stakes that just really kind of took me out of it.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like the Marines go as all out as you think they would for something like this.
Yeah, and that's
there's more of a turnout for the Summit War.
Yeah, and oh God, yeah, you're right. You would think, okay, man, we got to get some of these warlords in, and there's aspects of that too, right? Because like, sorry for jumping all around. Like Z's whole backstory was basically like, pirates killed my family, and that was cool. I could stomach that, but then, and they don't say which one, but like, oh, the pirate that killed my family became a warlord, and that's sort of what radicalized him, and I thought that was really cool.
Well, no, there was 3 steps. There was actually 3 steps because you're missing one, because you had a pirate kill his family while he was gone, his kid and wife, and he's just like, obviously that was painful, but he threw himself into training the next batch of heroes, and that's how he has this connection with a lot of very famous Marines now, because he has just an eye for talent and was able to really train them up. But while also training them, he got attacked by a pirate and proceeded to lose his arm. And you know, that's how he has the Bins and Ein as his subordinates, because they're the only 2 survivors of that attack from this pirate. And again, he just held on. He's like, okay, this sucks, but I'm going to stick with it. Got this new arm to deal with devil fruit users. Don't really like devil fruit users anymore, but we're going to just still work towards justice. I will keep to that. But then it's the hypocrisy of the Navy that finally sets him off, where that same pirate who cut off his arm and did all this to his crew was accepted as a warlord. And we don't know which one. We don't know which one. I'm thinking it's Doflamingo. Doflamingo makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
We've seen him cut off limbs. It seems to be his sort of thing. And I feel kind of ties into the fact that we're getting towards dealing with Doflamingo himself, but I can't see, I can't see any of the others. Like,
yeah, I think there's a good reason why it would be Doflamingo. For some reason, I was fixated on, because I guess my sense of time had kind of broken, so I figured it was one of the time skip ones. But I guess that like doesn't really make sense, you know, which would basically, you know, that would be Law or the other 2,
right?
We haven't met yet. When you say Doflamingo, I think that clicks. I think it's probably Doflamingo.
Yeah, I mean, it could be one of the new ones, but I kind of doubt it, just because it seems like he went down this, like they say he disappeared for a while and then he reemerged with these Neo Marines, as he calls them.
Yeah. I was sort of like, it could be Law if you squint, but probably not. And quite frankly, it is unlikely to be the other 2 that we haven't met yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think if he'd lost his arm to like Law, I don't think it would have been gone. Like, that's Law's whole thing is it can be reattached. So
yeah.
Meanwhile, we see what Doflamingo did to Oars Jr., and it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah. And that, I think, to me, because we do have these sort of conversations about Z and about just like basically like every major like Marine character that we've met throughout the story has been touched by him in some way. And I think when I say that, like, that's missing, like, I wish there was more of that, and more of kind of that exploration of like, hey, there's this, we're kind of propagating this system that has created this world-ending monster. Like, this is kind of our problem that the Straw Hats just kind of end up getting involved with. And because, sorry for getting ahead of myself, Kuzan is basically the only Marine character who has any kind of presence in this movie whatsoever. And he's
ex-Marine.
Yeah, he's ex-Marine. He's excommunicated. He's done. He's donezo. So he's just kind of like, yeah, man, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you see those shots of like we see time skip Kobe for the first time, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, there's a lot of time skip. Like, technically for anime watchers, this is the first time I saw time skip Smoker and Tashigi.
Exactly. And I know that we we've had Smoker and Tashigi involved a lot in Punk Hazard in the manga recently, but I like in terms of, I guess, like the definition of justice, there's something there, right? That I feel like, God, and there's so many Marine characters that I feel like you could have had even just one or two of them running around to be like, yeah, man, this is kind of our fault. Like, it feels like despite being their story, they're just kind of along for the ride.
Honestly, it feels like Smoker should have had a bigger role because of his distrust of the warlords in the first place. Though knowing that a warlord was the final straw for Zed. Yeah. Yeah,
that ties back up together. Or even, I guess it's funny to me, and I understand why they did this, naturally. We haven't, at least, so right now, where we're at in the manga, because Kizaru is the only Admiral, basically, because Kuzan quit, and Sakazuki is now, he got a promotion. Yeah, he's Fleet Admiral. So we have 2 empty spots, which kind of leaves poor Kizaru off on his own, which I feel like would actually be a good time to kind of like, hey man, it feels like he's the one who's been along for the ride the most, or I guess like the least characterized of the admirals that we've seen. So and it's clear that it's established that he has history, and he has that really cool fight with Z at the beginning of the movie and is there for the end, but it's just kind of like, I guess it's things like that feel like missed opportunities to me.
Yeah, and again, we're only focusing on this because this is really the only weak point of the movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is really it. Other than that, it is all praise.
Yeah, it is fascinating. We do get those different levels where we have this definitely much more of a connection with Aokiji, Kuzan, however you want to call him right now. Yeah. Where you can definitely feel the mentorship of that one, where he can't bring himself to fight him.
Yeah, I love that he sings the song that they have. That's just so like haunting.
That's really good. And then we have sort of the Garp and Sengoku.
Yeah,
who are more,
and he's like, he's their generation.
Yeah,
yeah, right. So I was expecting kind of a lot more from them too.
And unfortunately, Garp just serves as here's his backstory. And like Sengoku's there, but we only see his I think he's only there for his design, which, man, he went gray quick in 2 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had forgotten if we had seen Sengoku or not in the manga yet. I guess there's no reason for us to have. So yeah, there you go. There's your time skip Sengoku, who has just been completely white-haired by stress.
Yeah, Garp looks pretty much the same. I don't notice anything majorly different with him. I think he might have had like a bit of pepper in his hair, but I think that might be gone. He was covered in shadow a lot, so it's hard to tell. Kobe and Helmeppo get to see their new designs.
I love Kobe time skip. He was the one I was the most surprised to see.
I didn't get to see a good look at Kobe time skip. I love he has the coat now. That's a good sign.
Yeah. He just looks a little older.
Yeah. I honestly love Helmeppo's hat.
Yeah.
Hat and scarf. That looks good. I almost didn't recognize her at first, but we saw time skip Hina.
Yeah, good lord.
So
she got an upgrade.
Yeah, she did. That was cool. And then we only saw a small taste, like never saw the full thing of what Aki Inu looks like.
Yeah, I was surprised that we did not see him.
I gotta say, I'm extremely curious what he looks like, because the reveal of what that fight, because you hear like, oh, they fought for the position and messed up the island, the Punk Hazard. That's what caused the island to look like that, and that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, it was a pretty big fight, but I doubt it was like that devastating. And then you have that whole sequence where the Straw Hats are recovering from that first fight, that first loss against Zed, and the guys have to just like, Nami, Robin, Usopp, and Chopper are trying to gather information so they can learn what Zed's plans are, where he might be, that sort of thing. While the others are just sort of hanging out at the bathhouse, because it's a bathhouse island type thing because of the volcano. And then all of a sudden, here's Aokiji. And he's just hanging out. And you can see the scar as he's hanging out there. It's like, oh man, he did take some damage. And then he steps out of the bath, because he's basically just sort of giving them information, seeing what's going on. He's like, I'm not your enemy. I'm not part of the Marines anymore, so I have no reason to hunt you, that sort of thing. And then he steps out and reveals that he lost a freaking leg to that fight. That blew my mind.
Yep. It is. He's just got an ice leg. Like he has to maintain He has to use his devil fruit to maintain his body, which is like, that is a wild concept of like a Logia user losing a limb and having to maintain it. And also, I could be wrong about this. I cannot think of any other situation where we would learn this information. That does not get shown in the manga for a long time.
Well, that's the thing that was crazy to me, that we ended the last set of chapters with the hint that he's showing up at Punk Hazard.
Yeah, but you're not going to see his leg.
Yeah, there's no reason to show off his leg at that point, unless like he takes battle damage on that or something. But to see that here, to have Oda reveal his hand there, that's wild.
That again, I feel like that's that really cool interaction between kind of non-canon material, but with support and canon aspects to them, that we can actually get a major character reveal, like, oh, here's and like the lineup for that he had this, like, okay, I'm gonna tease Aokiji arriving at Punk Hazard here in a bit, and then the movie's gonna drop where he's just like right there. And if you're an anime watcher, like, that's all completely mind-blowing to you.
Yeah.
Because you would have no reason to expect that Aokiji would be anywhere, let alone half of the Marines that we're seeing new time skip designs for. So it's just like, it is actually kind of crazy what this movie is able to pull off in terms of the greater One Piece lore and storytelling. So I guess even though I do have my criticisms mostly in sort of how the relationship between Z and the Marines are portrayed, I feel like I do have to give this movie credit for like actually kind of going above and beyond, really giving the manga readers that kind of like, yeah, I know what you're here for. I know what you want to see it, and we're going to show you. So
yeah,
it's very cool.
It is extremely cool. And shall we mention the one of the other gimmicks of this movie, where we have Aina's return fruit, and it's able to de-age things around her by 12 years. So we get I was noting to you, because I just was like watching it, I was like, man, they're really jiggly with Nami in this movie.
Yeah.
In a way we haven't seen.
They get it all out of the way first.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's because they have to restrain themselves, because she gets de-aged to like a little like 6-year-old or something like that. And Chopper gets de-aged.
Yeah, which it's funny. I feel like Nami's is the most major one, and then you have Chopper, who's like, he's more merchandised, but he's already merchandised, so it really doesn't feel that different.
No. I mean, it's honestly, it's the difference between Pikachu and Pichu.
yeah, basically.
And Robin gets de-aged, so she's back in her 20s.
Yeah,
or maybe 18.
Or I think 18. They say.
Yeah, he said 18. So.
And then most tragic of all, Brooke. He's a poor 70-year-old man.
Yes, he got de-aged a bit, so his afro is a bit shinier, and he's all happy about it. I was like, okay, cool. We get some restraint with Nami as a 6-year-old. Although I did not need creepy Sanjay being like, "Ooh, I get to watch her grow up," and like, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is the de facto worst line in this entire movie.
Yeah,
like it like, and that's something that I feel like has been with some of my friends in particular, where it's just like, yeah, it's a rough time to be a Sanji fan this era, especially we're hot off the heels of Fishman Island. Punk Hazard has its ups and downs, and here's this anime only, but like the weird pedo vibes with Sanji. Oh, I get to watch Nami grow up. Just, no. I mean, thankfully, it is a single line. It is dropped and not really a thing at that point, which, thank God. Yeah, I'm glad that it's just that it could have been a lot worse, which is damning with faint praise, but it's true.
Yeah. And then Robin wants to get back to her original age, but I do like Usopp ribbing. I was like, oh, you don't want to have the young skin and things not sagging in certain ways, and she gets real threatening towards him.
It's a little,
it's a little ageist, and honestly, she looks damn good for her age. If
she does, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, come on, yeah. Those two moments are definitely the most like out of character, both for Usopp and Sanji, but like they're you drop it and forget it. Like it doesn't bother me.
I have actually noticed, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the bonus episode as well, that the anime really wants to cling to coward Usopp.
I think they do. You're absolutely right, and I wonder if that's why I had kind of been so disappointed so far, or like not so far, so originally. And I was remembering like, man, it doesn't really feel like they're committed to Usopp's growth. But the manga is aces for that. I feel like they're doing a really good job. But I feel like, leave it to the anime staff to really drag out a good joke.
Yeah, it's like we had this one thing for Usopp. We really want to keep this one thing. And it's a bit unfortunate, but they got good material with him acting as like Robin's dance manager and stuff like that. Like there's good stuff there. They don't need to rely on the coward aspect. So
yeah, for sure.
The humor is pretty good in this one. I
would actually say it's surprisingly serious overall. I feel like there's not, like, compared to say like Shiki's crew, where they're just like a bunch of goofballs, and even he's kind of a goofy fellow. Like Z and his crew, his subordinates, like it's very played straight.
Yeah, Ben's has a weird design, but he's not treated as a joke.
Yeah, right. Like the way I kind of came off, this feels like the most like shonen bro meathead movie. Yeah. And I don't say that in like a bad way, but and certainly like other aspects of One Piece, like the adventure and the humor, are sort of, they are brought back in a little bit to emphasize kind of like the rivalries and the fights, and good lord, the fights.
Oh my god, they are so gorgeously animated, especially the final big three fights of Zoro versus Ain, Sanji versus Benz, and Luffy versus Zed. And they are so gorgeously animated, like, good god. And you get some good moments even before that. Like, I loved the demonstration of the Supreme King Haki for Luffy, because he could just,
of course,
he's done.
yeah, getting that in there, just, god, it feels like such a good. To me, it is just like, man, now that we're in the time skip, we have all of these fun little toys that we can play with for all the characters. It's just like, yeah, we could just have Luffy use his Supreme King Haki on all the fodder. It's just like, which is great for me, because both as somebody who was kind of underwhelmed by that scene in the manga and during Fishman Island, because it was just paneled really weirdly, and the anime version of that same scene is just like horrendously ugly. So this is my first like, oh yeah, like this is how this should look.
This is pretty sick. Yeah.
And honestly, like, sorry, kind of being a hater here, but like, this is kind of Luffy's best fight since the time skip. Like his most interesting kind of opponent and interesting fight in the past 100 chapters.
Absolutely. He has an opponent that doesn't matter how much he's trained himself up, getting around Sea Prism Stone is a massive undertaking.
Yeah, and I like that, like, during their second encounter, he's just like, you're afraid, like, you're scared of this thing, and you're just like, yeah, it's a big freaking metal arm.
And Luffy gets shot by a Sea Prism Stone bullet. Like, again, getting into the whole thing is like, you Devil Fruit users rely too much on your Devil Fruit that you leave yourself open. That's a fascinating idea.
It feels like we are kind of in this era of, like, not to de-emphasize Devil Fruits, not by any means, but certainly kind of like Haki becoming more of like the baseline of combat, I guess. And that really goes to show, I don't know if I have that many more interesting thoughts to say about the action otherwise, but like the final fight, man, where it just like, I'm not above being pandered to. There's no music. It's just sound effects and grunts and just two men just like punching each other in the face. Yeah,
just that who can man it out the most. And
yeah,
like,
it's awesome.
He was an admiral. He's high ranking. Can Luffy take out a modern admiral? Who knows? Because he even blames himself. I go, want to get up. I want to keep fighting, but damn my old age.
Yeah, which I feel like is kind of the fun. Like, I feel like that's the excuse that everybody keeps using. I feel like age is sort of like the classic One Piece excuse for this character is a monster and they're just being nerfed by time.
Time comes for us all, but man, the fact that Luffy was able to leave an indent in the Sea Prism Stone from his punch and even break it apart is nuts. I don't think he actually broke it other than just dented it, but the mechanism that held it together fell apart, that it no longer became a thing. And I think that falling away definitely tapped into a core thing for Zed, where you can definitely get that sense. It's like, yes, this is what I want, not this other thing, just this classic fight between men, no politics. Let's do this.
And that's the thing at the end of the day, right? And I feel like that's kind of how the movie ends, and we kind of get that reveal of like Z as a child just wants to be a hero, and kind of, you know, after his time has passed, he wants to train more heroes. And so I feel like there is, you know, the whole thing about destroying the world and hating pirates and wanting to destroy all pirates and not caring who becomes the collateral damage. But like deep down in there, in the core, is kind of that child inside. Like Luffy is able to kind of get to that core to him, who's just like, we're just going to fight it out, man.
Yeah. And again, he's talking about the whole fact is like, in order to obtain your dream, or anybody to obtain their dream, they have to step over others and crush their dreams. So what is right there? And when Luffy beats him, he's like, all right, you won. You get your hat and you get my life. And Luffy's like, I'll take the hat, but I don't want your life.
Yeah, we can keep fighting if you want.
Yeah, we'll fight again, but
just,
I'm not killing you. I don't have any need to kill you.
Yeah, it was just
why'd you fight?
Luffy.
Because it's the way I had to become king of the pirates.
Yep.
I think that definitely gets through to him. And I love the comment as they're fighting where it's like, Aokiji Kuzan is like, oh, I actually get to see Black Fist Zephyr fight in his prime. And it's just like, you can see that sort of not regression, but just that revitalization of what he actually was like.
Yeah. Really kind of gets you to, now that we know that Kuzan has quit the Marines, it really does kind of like what's he doing with his life? What's he doing here?
I don't know what he's up to, but I mean, it's interesting nonetheless. Like, he's this wild card now. That's okay.
Yeah,
I'm
very much a wild card.
Curious what that's going to be like.
And well, despite his injuries, like, he's also still a monster, right?
Oh,
like,
God, yeah. He freezes that whole like eruption to just give people enough time to get away from the other island, because that's an entire resort town that gets destroyed. Like, it's not focused on too much other than that one shot in the train, but an entire island, a massive tourist island, just got completely destroyed, and these people displaced.
Which is, I feel like, it's pretty like thematically kind of poignant too. Where again, that's just collateral damage for Z, right? Like, that's just, he doesn't care kind of, you know, what kind of normal person gets sort of treated as collateral damage. And I feel like there probably was a draft of this movie where that was kind of a bigger angle. And, you know, you have the thing with like the old man and his kid near the beginning of the movie where it's like, oh yeah, we were, you know, I've been collecting weapons from old pirates who've been destroyed by Z. But it is sort of interesting. And I feel like because relative to other One Piece movies, this one is so action packed that like the sort of narrative aspects do end up kind of having to fall by the wayside
a bit. It's more of a mood piece because you either have the action or the character sort of reflecting. Yeah,
which it's very different. Like,
yeah,
it there's not a whole lot of like the adventure aspect, and not a whole lot of the.
It completely gets rid of the whole, like, we've arrived on this new island, or we've met this new friend, or this sort of thing that we've seen so many times before. And it's just like, we rescued this guy, he attacks us.
Right, yeah.
And we got to get revenge, or we got to get our pride back in that. But also having to deal with Marines. And again, I like the Straw Hats, you know, there's only 2 underlings, so naturally go to Zoro and Sanji, but the others do get their stuff. They get to fight a bunch of Marines, show off their stuff. I love that we get a good showing for the Battle Frankie.
Seeing that in big budget animation is so rad.
Oh my gosh, the Frankie General was so cool. It gives you that appreciation for the fight against Baby 5 and what that thing can do. Because it takes down pacifistas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which are increasingly Terminator-like.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there are parts of the Baby 5 fight in the anime that are actually really well animated too. So I think the staff just might have some bias towards the General Frankie.
Yeah, I have a feeling so, and I'm glad Frankie got to stand out because he's spent a lot of the time in the background just fixing up the Sunny, so he doesn't get too much to do. But that's fine. That being said, I was like, oh my god, when Zoro defeated Ain and Nami reverts back to her original age, and just like they took advantage of every shot of that.
Yeah, which is funny too, because it's like aged up Nami is in all the marketing and all the figures and all that, but like it's like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then she spends in that outfit because she's like an 8-year-old for most of the movie.
Yeah, it fit when she was an 8-year-old, but as soon as she ages up, that's why it seems so tiny. And I
guess that makes sense. That's fair, I guess.
I sure, why not? It works. I did get a laugh at. I honestly got more of a laugh at Robin's, where just like from 18 to 30. She still got like a chest increase, like just she always has this kind of little moan that she puts out when she gets back to her own. She's like, "What the?"
yeah. I was gonna say this is definitely. I feel like it might be the horniest One Piece movie.
I don't know because it's not a constant. That's the thing.
I guess it's just more when it happens. It's definitely more. I feel like because this movie is so well animated, like all of those moments also tend to get the resources, whereas obviously like movie 7 is really infamous for that, but is also like just kind of a deeply ugly movie otherwise. so it did have me going like, is it as horny as movie 7 or more? I can't quite tell.
I would argue not quite as much. Like when it like when it gets that chance, it absolutely is, but otherwise not.
I guess that's the thing. Because in movie 7, it's like really random. It is like it is constant in a way that feels like they're just doing it to do it. Either way,
just kind of fun. That being said, I do like that they use those shots to set up a joke with Brooke, where he just shows off his butt and all that stuff.
Yes, the Brooke gag with that is really funny, and the fact that he doesn't change visually at all, really, and the fact that he just. Hearing Brooke's voice actor just kind of like squeal and moan is so funny. I lost it.
Yeah, that I'm willing to accept those aspects because it sets up good jokes.
Yeah, and also the boys spent a good amount of time. They were butt naked in that hot spring for a good minute.
They were.
So there's some good close-ups there. It is, and unlike movie 7, this movie's kind of horny for everybody.
yeah, very much so. That being said, as far as talking outfits, while some of these we did comment them last time because we saw them in the color spread, but in seeing them in action, seeing them in use, I do think the Strong World outfits are better than these.
It's weird. It's almost weird, actually. Yeah, because the excuse this time is like, oh, we're using all of like the guns and the outfits and stuff from left behind from other pirates who'd gotten defeated by Z. So like this is the most like traditionally pirate, but also kind of like warlike that they tend to look. And like I like them fine. Nothing really beats like the gangster Yakuza vibe of Strong World is rad.
Yeah. I do appreciate Chopper placing a bunch of guns around himself and then going into his guard point and just shoot all the guns at once in all directions.
It's pretty clever.
Like, okay, that's fun. That's a good time.
I do kind of like their outfits at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah, for the Sakura festival.
Like yeah. Like Zoro, he really has like this kind of like Yakuza look going on here that I really dig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That being said, the fight with Z, the final stand by him as he's fighting Kizaru and all that, it actually did get me pretty close to tearing up.
You got me emotional, yeah. Like and that like sort of Kuzan's one contribution was to create the ice wall so that the Straw Hats could escape, and to kind of like Z died fighting for what he believed in, and he died happy. And I think that is like actually a really commendable end to that character.
Yeah, and it's very rare that we have even movie villains die. Like it happens more often in the series, but to have a new version of this where he is definitively dead, and just to end with that him as a child, like where why does he call himself Zed whatever? That's his superhero name.
Yeah, like that.
That's touching in a way.
It really is touching, honestly. Like the way that I feel like there ends up being this kind of purity to Z almost, even though he's this old man, that they showed kind of the roots of his ideals and sort of the kind of classic bright-eyed optimism and the superheroism of it all. Like I feel like that was the best way to bring it all back around as a character. And I just for all of the sort of like little things that I have complaints about with this movie, like Z himself as a character is just 10 out of 10. He's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely deserved to be named after it. The movie to be named after him. Just great action throughout. So just really good character work on his part, and even like how when Zoro is fighting Ayn, saying that she's hesitant in her sword swings because she doesn't fully agree with this, but she obviously feels like she owes him and just cares about him. But he's set in his way, and there's a lot of little things here that really work out. It's a shame that there's less of a focus on the Marines to have it sort of be perfect in a way. Again, you got the respectful mentee. I forget what the name is, but yeah, you got Kuzan there acting as like the one who actually respected him. You got Kizaru there who doesn't really seem to respect him, but he doesn't seem to respect him much of anything. So I don't know. I still have a full read on Kizaru.
Fair. I understand why they didn't, but it did stand out to me as somebody who knows things. And I mentioned this earlier in this podcast, but like we do have 2 empty slots for admirals, and that we didn't see them at all.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just
we're gonna keep that a surprise still.
Yeah, despite the stakes being so high, it's just like. Is Kizaru the only one? Are there 2 new ones? No indication.
I don't know. That being said, yeah, I absolutely just love this movie. It's available on Netflix and Crunchyroll if you want to watch it there.
I watched the Blu-rays, baby.
Yeah, so just completely easy to access and enjoy. Yep. So absolutely recommended.
One of the best One Piece movies. And again, I feel bad that I spent so much of this episode being kind of critical because like it really is that good. Again,
but that's the thing. How do you comment on it? Like this was good. This was good. This was good. So you kind of focus on that negative thing, but it really is the only negative. And to me, that's a very minor thing.
It really is. Yeah, it is not like it's not damning or anything, right? Like it's just like that. This is sort of my one letdown, and I think as we'll get into, hey, you can subscribe to the Patreon if you want to hear our thoughts on sort of the accompanying filler arc for this movie.
Oh.
But I think the things that I think are kind of shortcomings for this film could have easily have been addressed in a 4-episode original story for the anime.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't, I think that makes me actively mad.
Yeah. I think we'll have some stuff to say about that when we cover it in the bonus episode. The last thing I do want to mention is that I was thrown for a loop when the ending song comes up and it's Avril Lavigne singing How You Remind Me. I'm like, what the... Like, I know she's married to Chad Kroger, but it's still, like, wild.
Yeah.
But it also is, like, the lyrics kind of work for this movie, which is the funny thing, if you take them extremely literally.
It's so weird. It is, and I think Oda said that it was just because, like, he found out she was a fan or something like that. I forgot if that was... She's
big in the anime and all that. Didn't she have that whole song that nobody really liked of her singing about how much she loves Japanese stuff?
I don't remember at all. I wouldn't be the one to know that, but I wouldn't be surprised either. But yeah, God, it's definitely weird.
But yeah, we got a very short version of that, and then we went into Bad Reputation, which is like,
it just
sure.
It really, after how emotionally like that ending just like hits you, and that just seeing Z just like that final standoff and all of that, and then just go straight into Avril Lavigne, just like hit me like a truck.
I could barely focus on that wrap up scenes, which really didn't amount to much of anything as far as the wrap ups.
Yeah,
it's a good movie. It's a good movie. Some oddities here and there, but I'm happy to have finally watched it.
Easy recommend. Yeah. And I'm really glad too that I was like, I was just like, man, I think Derrick's going to really like this movie. And this was my first time watching it in like 11 years, basically.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't really remember much about it at all, but I'm glad that it was like, yeah, I remember why I like this movie so much. And a lot of that is that 11 years ago, I was the shonen meathead that this movie was appealing to, and I was like, man, that final fight was so cool. And that's really all I remembered about it.
We do have a ways to go before we get to our next movie, because this was December 2012. Next one, Gold, isn't until July of 2016.
Yeah.
Wow.
That sounds about. I specifically remember too. Just complete tangent, but I think Gold is the first one to have like an relatively quick like U.S. theatrical release.
Oh, okay.
And by relatively quick, I mean I think it was like 6 months late or something like that.
Right.
I remember it being really close to not really close, but like I have it in memory around the same time as like Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark-Sided Dimensions. Like,
oh, okay.
Like
cool.
kind of, it was something we had to go out of our way for. Like it was not like a wide theater release, but it was a relatively soon after the Japanese release. Like I remember again
how times have changed with Red.
Exactly, right? Like Red was pretty fast. Z, I remember watching like random parts on like crappy cam rips. So
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely rough times. We've come far.
Yes, we have. But yeah, with that, I believe we've said all we wanted to say about One Piece Film Z or Z, whatever. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube or simply BitNerd on BlueSky. And Brandon, where can everyone find you at?
I am Brandon Bovia on Twitter and BlueSky, talking about anime, manga, games, and my job. I just had I had a post kind of quote unquote blow up recently because I put this cool like screenshot together of like, you know, how it started versus how it's going. And it's 2 shots of like, the first shot is the original Beyblade manga with my name written under the cover, because the original Beyblade was my first manga. So I would write my name in all of the volumes, because just in case if I lost it, like people would know, who to bring it back to. And then the how it's going was the first volume of Beyblade X, which my sample copy literally arrived on Christmas Eve.
Ooh, nice.
Could not have been the best timing. The full release is January 14th, I think. So I had to take a picture of the credits page to show my name in the credits, and just like that seemed to have resonated with a lot of people. And
that's just awesome.
It just makes me happy. It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
If you don't know,
that's a big deal.
I'm lettering Beyblade X, and Beyblade is one of my favorite franchises of all time for some reason. So
all good.
That's what I've been up to on social media. So
yeah. That's awesome. And if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derrick Bittner. That's DerrickBitner to listen to the next episode ad-free 3 days early, as well as patron-exclusive bonus episodes, which, yeah, we're talking about Z's Ambition, or whatever it's called. The Z's Ambition filler arc, which is...
Couldn't have said it better myself.
If you want to see some true body horror, check that out. Woo! And make sure to return next time as we bring Punk Hazard to a close and discuss chapters 696 to 700 of One Piece. So until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.
You're gonna pay for this! I'll be ready for a rematch. Because I am a hero of justice!